And I have a list of questions that were pre-submitted um, that we can address at the end. They're all pretty straightforward though. Okay, live stream's working. Okay, yeah, I know this is just a small live room, but I think this will hopefully be most useful in the recorded form. But thank you for joining us live. Anyone or everyone here? This is the information session for Computer mo yan. And I'm accompanied by Waki, another editor in the project, and we'll just talk briefly about like submission details, answer a lot of questions that we got because it's a very long, detailed document, and also just talk about themes and influences and points of inspiration that people can draw from when thinking about their projects. Then we can go and field any questions that people might have, or if people find this time interesting to kind of dive into the themes or to like further discuss what could be potential points of interest. That's also a direction that we could use this meeting for. Oh, the meeting room should be disabled. But yeah, we'll just start because I think there might be a lot to go through. But just to introduce ourselves, I'm Chia. I am currently based in San Francisco. That's why I start. But I am a product designer at a tech company, but I'm also an internet artist and an ambient artist. And by that, I make a lot of like internet-based installations. I also think about ambience in the sense of it as a tactic to investigate the politics of visibility, ubiquity, and the like. And I think a lot about labor, maintenance, infrastructure, and those questions in my work. Um, I'm the founder of Develop and I guess the Philippine Internet Archive, which are the larger organizations that are running this project. And yeah, I make a lot of websites. I'm joined by Waki, who's another co-editor and co-curator of KAKAKOMPYUTER mo yan.
Oh, hi, hello. I'm Waki. I'm a artist researcher based in Cainta, Philippines, and I'm currently pursuing an undergraduate degree in computer science. In a way, my artistic practice, aims to challenge prevailing narratives. Currently focusing on works about countering misinformation and championing collective struggle. And currently, I'm in collaboration in researching about online disinformation with my department in computer science and in documenting Philippine internet spaces. Thank you. Chia, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, maybe we can both briefly show just one piece that we're working on outside of KAKAKOMPYUTER mo yan, just to kind of contextualize our work and maybe also begin to show an example of like internet art. I can go first, I guess. Um, I have like 1 million browser windows. But yeah, I want to share a piece, just as a brief example of my work, which deals also a lot with websites and kind of like placemaking on the web. Thinking about my broad visionary theme for a lot of the work I do is I say that I want to gather all the people I love in one place and try to construct an internet that could be that place. Obviously that's a very lofty goal, and I realize the transgressive nature of the internet, but still think that there's a lot to explore. So I can show an in progress work that I'm doing. I have this larger kind of like web epic called When We Love that has consisted of a lot of like alternative social networks on the browser. So this is one called Stargazing that is just like a very simple like wish making site, and each star basically you can click on it and see I wish that other people have made. But it's like a very simple concept in general. It's a database that kind of just like stores these words and sketches, but I kind of try to situate people in a kind of like space on the web where they feel secure enough to kind of share these thoughts. The interesting part about this is that there's also an alternative space called When We Love slash Cloud Watching. And these pieces are respectively only accessible during daytime or nighttime, depending on your location. So if you would try to go to this piece and you're based in the Philippines, you would probably be directed to the cloud watching site where it's like a lot sillier than this kind of heavy piece where people tend to like kind of leave deeper thoughts. In that one you just kind of draw and name clouds and you can blow other clouds away if you don't like what it is. Um, one of the new works I'm working on is thinking of all lot about kind of the structure of the browser, which you will see as a theme later, and playing with a lot of the defaults of the internet and the environment. So, you know, when you type in the address bar, um, your kind of like frequent search history or pops up, like their auto suggestions. So this kind of website kind of asks someone to like construct a world by just guessing things. So the web is mostly composed of links. We mostly are able to jump from one place to another, link to link. It's weird how on a lot of social platforms, like there's only one link that you're allowed to put in your bio. So there are millions of dollars invested in companies that are dedicated to adding more, letting you add more links in your bio, which is ridiculous. But this kind of website plays exactly with that, where you can begin with typing things like star, leaf, um, bed, and certain things like that. But then certain objects and actions are only unlockable if you've accessed kind of prerequisite items. So there's incentive to kind of like revisit items again and again. An example is here, there's this door and you can try to open it, but then it won't open unless you type key. And a lot of these combinations and access points are very arbitrary. But yeah, interesting mechanic. I don't think I've seen it explored in a lot of browser-based works. That's just one example. Yeah, very brief snippet of the type of internet art I work on. Paki, are you good to share a piece of yours?
Sure thing. Is it alright if I share screen for a bit? Uh, Hold on. Um, is it sharing?
Yep.
Okay. Um, I'd like to show some of my pieces, and this is a piece for a publication by artists for digital rights. And this work of mine is a tool for mapping out internet rabbit holes and noting the links being clicked due to disinformation. Unfortunately, the QR code and the links don't really work anymore because I accidentally deleted the website and the files, both cloud and local. So I'm still working on recovering it. Another work of mine is a another mapping kind of initiative on a website, but this time it's a physical one. It's about plotting the sites of demolitions and documenting the narratives of those affected by these demolitions. And it also serves as a website where people can report and air out their experiences uh, about these events. And in a way, it's a community counter mapping effort. Um, Other than this, sometimes I talk about the possibilities of the internet and using it as a site for resistance. And sometimes I draw, and I'm currently revisiting, rediscovering creating games. And that's all for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Aki. Yeah, we'll continue with the info session. And if anyone's interested in any of the links to those work or if you have questions about anything we mentioned, please feel free to ask in the chat anytime. Uh, Especially if you're new to kind of internet or web-based work, don't feel intimidated. We hope those were just like good examples so you can get a sense of our interest points and where we come from, and we're also excited to learn about where you come from. Um, So I just wanted to share the broader initiative that Computer Mo Yan is being conducted under. So Develop is the organization that is kind of the umbrella of all of this. It's, I guess, a tech org that has been in operation since 2016. It started off as kind of like a very generic like CS org, doing a lot of workshops on coding, design, helping a lot of people get internships. We started when we were high schoolers, so um, it's kind of also just like followed our life and practice, and more recently developed, as it has been doing in the past like 7 years now of its operation, has just like switched from a lot of like different programming models. We still do a lot of workshops and talks. We've done residencies, we've done fellowships, we've held like conferences. We make our own resources and archives, and most recently, a big focus of ours has been kind of the theme of digital preservation, especially as we've seen it become very necessary. So we have begun this research and publishing effort since the start of the year called the Philippine Internet Archive that is just looking to document Filipino internet and networking culture. So broadly, by internet and networking culture, we kind of just define that as like the, I guess, like social political conditions, moments, events, and people, or like possibilities that have risen from like the rise of ICTs that were like massively adopted, and like information communication technologies like the internet. Um, so that's how we look at it. More specifically, we are just, I don't know, just very interested in how our internet infrastructure is set up. We're interested in kind of like the corporations, the figures, like the academic and corporate kind of like overlaps, the people who have made the Filipino internet. And we're also interested in how blurry the definition of a Filipino internet might be. But more practically, the current work under the archive is a very broad index of individuals and institutions. So a lot of these are kind of being lost to kind of institutional or like tribal knowledge. A lot of people who are active in the 80s and 90s are sadly like no longer with us. So I think it's even more urgent that we actually just like profile their lives, essentially create like a wiki or index of these figures. And from that foundation, we intend to begin working on timelines and a more narrative based like publishing effort. Um, so that's obviously kind of very distinct from the work of this exhibition series, but it's largely also tied to fostering more interest, education, and awareness about like internet culture in general and what that means. And we obviously can't think about like memes or like the communication like cultures that have risen without thinking about the people who have made this possible. Um, so yeah, just to contextualize that there's kind of like a academic or like a formal researching and publishing project behind all this. And now my face is really blue. This exhibition series is a series of like artistic interventions to get people to care more or like think more and just like discuss what it means to be living in the time of the Filipino internet, what it means when we are creating, producing, communicating, living under it. So we want to foster more digital born art. We want to see art about the internet and on the internet. And we just also want to uplift more kind of like hyper local narratives and experiences. I think a lot of us have seen that many of these like Filipino internet experiences kind of live where most of us dwell, which means like Facebook groups or Viber chats and whatnot, which is not that great for preservation and also in ways not seen as valid by the Western world, where you can see that there's this realm of internet art that is seen as like necessary in like museums or necessary for preservation, but then not a lot of this art stems from places like ours. So another interest of the Philippine Internet Archives artistic intervention projects is also just kind of like use art as a tool also in our repertoire, aside from like our publishing project, to just continue examining and expanding the definition of our technologies, investigating their boundaries, investigating their histories. Um, So this exhibition series is officially kind of launching November, um, online and offline. So online for sure November 1st as a part of this exhibition called the Wrong Biennale. And we're also going to launch offline, hopefully in an exhibition in Metro Manila. And before and after the official launch, we're hoping to host more events like a talk series, workshops. We're hosting a spreadsheet works websites workshop next week, that I'll be hosting. That is kind of like themed around what if we'll be sharing later, and also doing more performances and just like internet-based gatherings. Yeah, and we are here to obviously answer questions about the open call. So it's due on the 1st of July, like anytime. And I just want to note, because I think this is the biggest source of confusion, you can just submit a proposal by July 1st. Like you do not need a fully finished project. So all you need to do is like email us even one paragraph of what you want to work on, a loose idea, and any medium is welcome. So I see there's a question in the chat. The exhibit basically is like we welcome any medium, as long as it can be presented on the internet, and we encourage people to think of unique ways that the work can be presented on the internet. And we'll talk more about that in a bit, but yeah, just to say we're very much welcome to like both literary, visual, video, performance pieces, as long as it can be presented in the browser. It can be as simple as like having a video fit or an embed or the like. But there's a lot of mechanics that you can also toy with that we're also happy to answer questions about. Like for instance, there are literary works that will disappear the more people access them, or there are like video works that can only be accessed at certain times of the day, kind of similar to the websites I showed earlier. But yeah, anything that kind of like plays with the internet and can be displayed on the internet is fair game. We offer an honorarium also to all participants, and what we offer is obviously editorial support. Will help you with your idea. That's why all you need to do is submit a proposal, and we'll kind of like help contextualize also what other works are currently in the roster. Will help kind of investigate your interests and think about the way to execute it. Um, will also just help like obviously code the piece so it can be installed online and offline once we kind of have more details about the exhibition. And I also want to note that we are especially excited with about working with like non-artists or people who have never like really considered themselves as making art. Um, just because like it can literally be anything on the internet, even if you've never like done an art show or never taken an art class. And also because the broader goal of this project is in general to foster more discourse about what it means to be on the Filipino internet, or what that would be defined, what that would even be considered as. We want this open call and the process to be an opportunity for you to reflect on your personal experiences, research and thinking about the internet as well. So I hope it's a generative process and that you're also inspired by all the artists you're going to be with, and also by hopefully the direction and conversations that you have with us. So this is a timeline. This is also shared on the website, but just to summarize, email us by July 1st with the idea for your project, and we'll try to get back within 2 weeks. Also note that the open call, we're kind of reviewing it on a rolling basis. So the earlier you submit your idea, the better. So we can give you a response sooner and you can start working on it sooner. For by August 1, we would like for a lot of artists to kind of have a loose idea of their pieces. By that I mean, like perhaps you know already the medium you're working with, and if you're able to give like a screenshot or preview, that would be really helpful for us as we're preparing for the requirements of the larger biennale that we're part of. Um, if your work requires like heavy engineering support, this is mostly pieces from our first open call. It should generally be sent over to us by September. This means that if we're doing a lot of development work, um, we should have like your files and content by September so we can actually like code it. And by October 15th, all work should generally be complete. So this means that if you submit on the last possible day, July 1, you'll hear back July 14, and you have until July 14 to like mid-October to work on your piece, which is a very broad time. So we hope that's doable, and totally up to you if you want to stretch out the project throughout that whole time or finish it sooner. And also some people are already submitting completed work or continuing existing work. So we can work with any timelines that work with ours. And everything launches November 1. So this is how you submit. Please read like the full Google Doc we have on the website for full details. But then the summary of it is that you email us your proposal, and in your proposal you cover who you are, and by that we just mean what do you do, what do you care about, where are you based. Just like let us know who you are because we'll be working with you, and more than just your output, we're interested in your perspective, and we're interested in knowing you because we'll be working with you. And if you have a website or portfolio or social links that you're willing to share with us, you're free to do that so we can kind of like get a better sense of your work. But if you don't want to share or if you don't have a portfolio, that's also very fine. And again, we want to work with non-artists, especially. Then you send us a short project proposal. So what that consists of is tell us the concept, like what are you generally thinking about? What's the medium or format of the piece? Like, are you going to primarily be working with audio? Is it mostly visual? How will you make it? Um, and then let us know if it's a new idea, if you've been thinking about it for a while, and what kind of help you need from us. So this gives us an idea of kind of like what editorial support we'll be able to give. Like, do you need help in coding it, and what kind of help would you need? Or do you just need help in like editing like your text, the like, or do you want us to help you explore your themes? Everyone has different needs. So if you have an idea of what you want us to best guide you with on, let us know. And yeah, that's all you need. And this can just be like a paragraph or two. And extra that you can add to your project proposal, but not at all required, is you can send references, sketches, a prototype. This is not expected, but if you have one and would like to share it with us, it would be great. You can even just send links of artists you like or work that you're inspired by, similar work. And this just like helps us understand what you're drawing from. And by references, sketches, like it doesn't not just need to be like a mood board. It can be like conceptual references, or it can be like literary texts that don't maybe seem obviously connected to your work, but are like inspiring you a lot. Um, all of this is to just get a sense of how you think about Filipino internet history and the type of work that you might give us. But yeah, it's not like a very strict guideline, and it's very loose and you're free to format however you'd like. Um, and you're not bound to this proposal. A lot of people have changed their projects, but that's why we kind of are interested more in your identity and what you're inspired by, because we know that maybe the exact project will change, but it's good to have a general sense of where your inspirations and influences are currently drawing from. Um, so a bit more on what we are especially interested in seeing. To contextualize, this is the second round that we did the open call. We did one in January, and it's only recently that we wanted to like expand the scope of the exhibition, that we got a bit more funding. So we really wanted to be a larger project, especially as the Philippine Internet Archive is also getting a bit larger. Um, so here are just like some like insider bits on what we'd like to see more of. In terms of medium, we actually want to see more literary pieces, particularly like creative kind of fiction and poetry. We have a lot of nonfiction works, and this is not to say that if you are thinking of like nonfiction or something that's not here that you shouldn't submit it, but then like we don't have a lot of pieces basically in the current roster that are represented here. So it would be extra cool if we see it. We'd also be interested in audio works or sound art. And this can even be a mix of very carefully curated playlists, things like that. Like anything that's primarily audio based, you don't even have to be like a musician. Like we're not asking for an album, but maybe like something audio based. Um, Another thing that we're interested in seeing is maybe like seeing an existing platform that's very frequently used already in kind of the Filipino internet. So if the work is like entirely on FB or like Viber or TikTok or Google Docs or something weird like that, That would be cool. I also love to see performance art, and it's obviously interesting to see how that will be translated to the browser. But yeah, just leaving that there. Um, Waki, is there anything you'd like to add here?
So, personally, I think it's also cool if uh probably perhaps video games could be explored as well. That could be put in browsers. Yeah.
That's a good, yeah, that's a great call out. We actually don't have any video games. Like we have like a lot of interactive things, but they're not like games. I don't know. I don't want to like get into the trouble of defining what the game is versus an interactive. But yeah, what Waki said. And Waki, I think you showed a piece made with Bitsy. So like video game, you don't have to make like your own thing. There's a lot of like very tiny independent game tools that exist. That would be very interesting to see used. Um, yeah. On the second bullet, we have a lot of personal narratives, which is great. It would be interesting to see kind of like more research-driven work. So if you're interested in a particular community or like some like topic that is not like specifically your personal experience or history, that would also be nice to see. Um, we also kind of have a lot of like a lot of linear pieces or like a lot of like they're just like representations of a narrative. So it'd be kind of interesting to see more communally shaped experiences, like what it would mean if the works were highly participatory. Um, I don't think interactive pieces is the right term there. It's more like, yeah, anything where it's like really shaped by audience input, um, or like crowdsourced in some way. Yeah, I like to see more of those. And then Waki and I also made this like larger list of themes that we're interested in seeing. Um, so this is not like super strict. Don't like be intimidated. I don't know why I was that aggressive, but even in the open call document, I think like the thing is that people see like Filipino internet history and networking culture and then immediately think like, oh, like it's like nostalgia and early like web icons. And there's like a big Y2K resurgence at the moment. And that's an interesting approach. Um, but I think there's also like a big politic to like nostalgia and what it means to kind of like glorify this age of networking history that might be a bit dangerous. And it has to be executed really properly, and there's so many angles that we'd love to see people take on. So here's like a loose list of themes that we'd love to see. And if anyone in the audience also has themes that they're interested in seeing, um please feel free to share as well. Or if you want to like kind of expound, ask if you would like us to expand further on any of them, feel free. And also I'd like to thank March and other artists we've had discussions with who are like references and influences and are why we were able to compile this list. It's very nice to see kind of like what angles people are taking things on. But yeah, Lucy, fandom, devotion, religion. We'd love to see things on class, access, space and place, labor, maintenance. We want to see investigations on like weird niche, like subcultures or weird, like very alternative or strange things that only exist in the Filipino internet or like seem very derived from specific like Filipino cultural like contexts that you wouldn't see on the Western internet. Um, would love to see more works more explicitly political, especially because so much of our social political environment and like literal like government situation has been influenced by the internet's control over it. Also very much interesting. It's not really a theme, but interviews, profiles, research would also be interesting to publish. Um, and yeah, and again, if anyone wants us to expand on any of these themes, please feel free to let us know. But Maki and I also compiled a lot of projects that are very similar to these themes, a lot by Filipino artists. We can take turns sharing them, I guess. and talking through the pieces. If you're not familiar to kind of like the internet art space, especially the kind of like Filipino internet art environment, I hope this is a useful like source of inspiration. Waki added a lot that I also have never seen. Um, yeah, well, the first bullet point was like on fandom, devotion. Like there's huge Wattpad culture, for example. Stand Twitter, everything in that vein. Would be interesting to see work on it, critiquing it, about being part of it, any angle really. This Wikipedia list of Philippine films based on Wattpad stories, and they're like the highest grossing list. It's so wow to me. Um, yeah, March, who I mentioned, who suggested like the topics on class and wanting to see more in class. They have this series of poems based on Dream Not Found, which is the Minecraft YouTubership between Dream and George Not Found. And I think it's like a perfect blend of like what it means to be in fandom from like the third world internet. Would highly recommend their pieces. Also, we'll share this slide show in case anyone wants the links and wants like a closer look. Another series of themes: maintenance, labor, colonialism. This is a piece by the one at the bottom left is a piece called Driftmine Satellite, which is a piece about maintenance made by this internet artist named Everspitkin, and it's part of this exhibition that is actually running on like a solar powered like server. So it's all about like like maintenance and infrastructure. I think that's very interesting. Bianca Aguilar, who is a huge part of Develop, also wrote this essay 2 years ago now, I think, about the creative industry and the type of labor they value. So why is it that it's mostly people in the Western world who are like who able to be creative directors? Why is their creative work valued, and why is like the work of labor and maintenance like written off as underskilled? And related to this is also like Filipinos are very online. They're early adopters of a lot of technologies, but then things like Web3, crypto, and the like have generally been used to exploit a lot of these masses, even though like in theory they propose like better structural foundations for the internet. So that's something to think about. Um, More on religion also. One on the left is kind of an internet tour piece I made based on the Visita Dash experience. This is a screenshot of, I think it's like a youth Christian group that recreated the Quiapo Church in Roblox, which is like the world's biggest like kids game where like basically all the games are like user generated, and there's so many Filipinos in Roblox. But this was like officially streamed by like also like the largest Christian radio station in the country. It's just so weird to me, um, and amazing in a way. And also like Roblox is obviously like made by like people in Silicon Valley, so it's super weird. It's not a Filipino artist, but for people interested in kind of like digging through a lot of their personal archives, thinking about machine learning or artificial intelligence, this great artist um did this project where they took a lot of their family archives and photographs, and they were thinking about like digital decay, the approximation of memory, what it means to kind of like have memory be more diluted and lost throughout generations, and in a way like running these photos and recreating memories is basically like how is like the digital depreciation of memory any different from like the actual loss of memory that happens, and it's like installed beautifully, and I think it's a very good use of a very smart and good use of artificial intelligence. um Another thing that one could draw from is there are a lot of like Google Drives, or I think there's a big culture in general of circulating like resources, media, on Google Drive, but also what does it mean when a lot of like these scans, these materials and whatnot are like on a platform owned by Google, which is like super corporate. How do you kind of like reclaim and reappropriate these platforms? What are their limitations? How can we redistribute them? So one of the Valve's projects was to create this martial law index that began by kind of like stripping like content from a lot of the like martial law library or martial law research Google Drives that were going around and creating like more mirrors. And actually seeding them so that there would be alternative like methods of like distributing these folders, especially if they were to like be taken down. And this was during the time of I think like the government kind of deleting like online martial law records. Um Waki, would you like to talk about this one?
Oh, sure, sure. This one is a work by Alfred Marasigan, and it also touches on religion and spirituality. And I really love this work because it is a big database and it's a community database as well that really um, pieces together the fragments of uh, Filipino belief and spirituality, like the agimat, the albularyo, yung bertud, gayuma, orasyon, and even Neuroscope, which is horoscope with the gay lingo modifier. And as we can see in the page, it really collects all these different pages from personal blogs to local businesses, products and services, personal pages, and there are even some pretty amusing non-governmental organizations listed. And if I think it's still open for contribution. If there are any more contributions that anyone would love to add, uh, uh, anyone can publicly participate in building this database. And yeah, these are one of the archiving works that could be done about the Filipino internet, like really presenting these corners of our virtual spaces and presenting them to others so that we can visit them. Yeah.
It's so interesting to me that one of the metadata captured was like the number of followers and likers. Um, like like all of these are super sussy, and it's almost like they're only legitimized by when they were made and their following. And I don't know in what other area these like yeah these alternative medical like practitioners would be given like the legitimacy that this database gives them. Um, yeah, that was also kind of mentioned the earlier, like specifically the anting like Facebook groups where they're buying and selling stuff. Um, yeah, super interesting. Really good example. Um, am I still sharing it? Can't tell. Okay. This is a larger project. I think it's just started as sunset profiles on Grinder by Zara Christoph and Zeus Vascoin. And they turned it into like a bunch of printed matter and installations and just a really nice way also to kind of dwell where Filipinos are currently like being online and to kind of like subvert the expectations of the platform. Um, there's a really good profile on it here. Um,
This one is an old project by Cat Projects. It's curated by Ariana Mercado and DJD Torres, and it's an email exhibition that is inspired by the Trojan horse and the LFV virus. And yeah, it's a really cool way to present an exhibit and to distribute works. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like we should have also had a page on I Love You Virus. as an OG. Um,
Oh, and this one was in a way, it's a zine that was included in Christina Lopez's exhibit, and it contains articles by Mark Sanchez, Moxman, and Aliana Cabral, which really tackle topics on surveillance, internet state apparatus, and the Magna Fanta computer. The Magna Fanta computer is, if you could remember the the viral video on YouTube about the man on the MRT or LRT, and they really extracted the poetics from that and tried to and in a way included uh different meanings from Philippine internet from magic into one article.
do you know if this was printed at some fair?
I'm not sure. I think it was printed during the show itself. Like,
Oh, yeah, the graphic style is beautiful. And here's a loose list of references also. A lot of these artists are like adjacent to these spaces. There's a lot more. We also have an arena channel if anyone's familiar with that, with all of these links and more, and it's open. So you're free to edit and add your own references. But this is just like the very beginning. I'm sure there's so many others that we have missed. Yeah, those are just like some sample projects, but here's my very broad list of submission tips. Um, the first one's kind of apparent. And in the proposal, you'll probably let us know, like, are you mostly deriving the work from like personal experience and personal narrative, or is it going to be more of a research-based project? And again, it would be great for us to see more research-based projects in the open call, but not at all like required. And also like internet culture again, I think a lot of people kind of default to thinking about like the past or the early 2000s and whatnot, but we're also even more interested in kind of like the present, and you can probably speak more to the present experiences, and it's like a great way to kind of like engage with the environment as it is today. A lot of the works we have are like kind of looking back on internet history and being quite reflective. But then I think since we're positing this entire project anyway as like an exercise in creating artistic interventions that encourage people to think about the internet, what better way than to engage in the present internet? Um, I'm so sorry that these are more like abstract kind of provocations, but an idea also to think about in general is like, where do you end and where does the internet begin? And perhaps that is not a very answerable question, and that's intentionally so. Um, you can see that we're also kind of interested in a lot of like alternative spaces. This can be spaces that, like, say, the Western world is not paying attention to, but a lot of Filipinos are currently inhabiting. A lot of the archival projects or the archival projects are like kind of like tackled on that. What are like uniquely Filipino experiences, or what are experiences that you can uniquely draw from? And of course, I want to go back again to saying that we really want this open call-in project to be a generative experience. So we are doing our best to kind of like offer editorial support and also be like people to talk to about the internet in general, to help you make new work and to explore new mediums and formats that you might not have tried before. So obviously we want you to be excited about the theme. We want you to be able to like kind of question something that you think would be nice to do a back and forth with us on. We want you to have a good experience and to not think of this as like a task. And hopefully you'll be in good company and in good conversation with everyone else who's in the project. Yeah, just super loose kind of generic tips, but that's the end of our presentation. We're happy to field any questions if people still have any. Um, this is recorded and is already going to be like live right after on the Develop YouTube, but full open call details again are on the website. If anyone has questions about how to write your proposal or submission, feel free to message us. If you want to discuss themes, feel free to let us know. If you want to do a project with other people but are looking for partners, we have a Discord. It's not super active, but then that might be the best place to kind of find other people who are thinking about the project. Or you can like send us a message about what you're thinking about and we can like republish it and broadcast it. We want to make this like as easy as possible for people to be able to find the right people and the right starting place to think about. Like, yeah. Um, I'm going to bring up the list of questions that were pre-submitted because it all was sent as individual emails. But in case anyone has questions, you can feel free to unmute or you can type it in the chat and we're happy to answer. Otherwise, we can end the session early. But thank you for attending live. Okay, the question in the chat, can we pitch or propose several ideas or preferably a more fleshed out singular idea? You're welcome to do either. People have done both and we've worked with both. If you pitch several ideas, we'll most likely respond with what interests us most, and that's going to be informed by likely going to be informed by how many other submissions we got. And what if someone's doing something similar to one of your ideas, we'll probably rule that out. Um, but any approach is fine. Okay. We only have one, I think, pre-submitted question, and I'll just answer it live again in case. But it's any guidelines on how to send a picture submission? Unsure if this was covered by the open call doc. Yeah, it's not super clear on the doc, unfortunately, but for guidelines on how to actually send the pitch, this is like, oops, this is the best slide that discusses that. Again, just let us know who you are, where you're based. You can share your website portfolio if that exists. Otherwise, just tell us what you do, what you care about right now. And then for the project proposal, just let us know the general concept, themes, what medium you're planning to work on, how you're planning to make it, if it's new or existing, and how much help do you need and like what kind of help will best fit you. Um, and again, optional to send references, sketches, prototypes. It can even be something like sending us a book you're reading or an essay you saw that you're really inspired by, and that's all. Um, Question, do we need to have basic coding or programming knowledge? Also, what are the limits of the project in terms of exhibitions as presentation? What is feasible, not feasible? Could we loop in different websites, social media platforms? Okay, I'll try to break this down. So it's only if your project is like inherently needs like programming, as in like it's a game, like you have to make that on your own. But then, for example, you're a writer or you're someone who's planning to submit a video work, or maybe you're doing a series of performances, you don't need to have coding knowledge. We are happy to assemble the work on the web page for you. Um, so there's no need. But then obviously if you're proposing a game, like you can't make us code the entire game. But if you're like submitting video work and you want to be able to format it in some way on the page, but you don't know how to do that, like we're happy to like actually help implement it on the website. For the limits of the project, That really depends. We can probably address more in your proposal or even pre-proposal if you're worried about it being a bit too complex. You can kind of like let us know, and then we'll try to address. But yes, you can definitely loop in different websites, social media platforms. There's a bunch of projects that are working with a lot of like very temporary, I'd say, like spaces. And either they're documenting it and putting it on the website, or like the work is intentionally designed to be like temporary, but obviously it has to run at least for the duration of exhibition in some way or shape. Um, but you can definitely like bend the limits of what's possible if, but yeah, it's probably better to ask when you have your in the context of your specific project. But we've been able to make a lot of things work. um I will say though, if you want to do something technically complex, just like consider how much effort it will be on our part to implement it. Like if it's too complex, to the degree where it needs like active support during the course of the exhibition, we probably won't be able to offer that help. And you'll need to find your own like partner for engineering and development. Yeah, thank you for the question. And similar to anyone else, if you have like a specific question about the feasibility of your proposal, like feel free to ask us even before submitting the final proposal. Like we don't want it to be the make or break factor in getting your project in. Like it's better if you kind of email us sooner and say, I want my project to be like this, but I'm not sure if it's possible and I don't know how to code. Then we can respond to you and tell you how to like maybe adjust it so that it's doable and we can come into agreement before you kind of like write up your final proposal, if that makes sense, now that you know the constraints better. And we won't at all hold it against you if you don't know like how hard it is to make something. Like it's our job to kind of like help you understand. Um, but the core fit is like we will help install the work on the site. But if the work itself is like a website or needs to be engineered by us, that's a bit more blurry. And if anyone else has any more questions after this meeting, feel free to email us, or the email us is best, or you can DM on any of our Instagrams or Twitter. But we're happy to answer questions anytime. Yeah. With that, I think we'll close unless there's any last questions that come in. But I want to say thank you to those who attended the info session. We hope these projects were helpful to see. Um, we'll share out the link and the slides more again. And we'll also kind of like summarize this on our socials. And if you yourself have like influences that you'd like to share, even if they're not specifically like projects, but even if they're just readings that you maybe want to share about internet culture, or like something you would like to bring into further discussion, share it with us, and we're happy to kind of like surface it. And again, I want to close also by saying if you need help thinking about themes, or if you need help with collaborators, for example, you really want to do like a technical project but you don't know how to code, um, you can let us know and we'll like post it on our Instagram or like Discord so we can help you find partners. Like we also don't want your network to be a limiting factor. Like we'll do our best to connect you because again, we really hope the project is an opportunity for you to dive into something interesting and be in conversation with interesting people about the internet. Yeah, thank you. Waki, do you have anything else to add?
Nothing much, but would really excited kami na makita yung mga works ninyo. Really looking forward to it and would love to collaborate with you all soon. Thank you all for attending. Ayun.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Yeah, Waki and I are just two of the editors. We have two others, Gabby and Elijah. They're not here with us, but then it's so fun to be in a space that is thinking about the internet, and we're so inspired by all the projects so far and all the discussions around it. And but like I want to close by saying that I see a lot of people who are like kind of joking and saying, "Wow, I wonder if my fandom project counts, or I wonder if this like random side project thing that I've been sharing is valid." And like any take at all on internet and networking culture, any way you've been living is an experience we want to see. And yeah, we're very excited and hope this is the start of like more spaces in the Philippines for the Filipino internet and on the Filipino internet, and hope to see you at the exhibitions and talks and workshops we're hosting. Thank you, everyone.